What's up, everyone? It is a wonderful week, halfway there. Depends on what day you're listening and watching, but nonetheless, you're listening to the unfiltered, unscripted. I know I butchered that both too. They actually unscripted, unfiltered, 100% authentic. Got a fun show for you. It is the one and only Miss Sarah. She's on here before, and she's the co-host of the Play Your Yards Right podcast. And you say it a few times fast, you may actually say cards. Like
Yeah.
when I was when I was actually typing everything out, I actually typed cards. So nonetheless, Miss Sarah
Correct.
is back from vacation and ready to talk some football because folks, we're again depends on what day you're watching this. Day of recording 72 days. We're guessing. I think
hmm
that's what that is, but we're run with it. Miss
hmm
Sarah, how are you? And I'm sure you're excited as much as I am about football coming back up.
Oh, I am. Well, I'm excited to be here, excited to be back and with a new season coming up, especially as things did not fare well for either us, me, you, nor I, as a Broncos and Cowboys fan. So a
Yeah.
start of new season, always some promise. I'm excited. I can't wait for football to be back. I mean, I feel like every week, especially on our podcast, like now it's a dead period in sports otherwise.
Yep.
And so, you're just kind of talking through them and grazing through them. But every time we bring up the NFL topics, it just gets me going every time. And we're inching our way there. It feels like it was not that long ago that we were 100
Yep.
days out. So it's promising. Obviously, we want to enjoy the summer, time while we can, because when football comes, it's fall. But it's
Oh
definitely,
yes.
just, I don't know. I go back and forth as to whether I want to wish the summer away or not for football season to start. But I'm excited. I'm very excited to hear your insights as a Broncos fan and just what you think for this year and everything. So it should be a good, fun episode.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. And I believe, please don't quote me on this, Sarah, and all the listeners out there. I mean, if you want to, I know how Twitter works nowadays. I think my prediction last year, when you were on the show last, might have been before the season started. I can't remember exactly.
hmm
Anyway, I think I was way off in my prediction when it came to Denver. And I want to say, was it? I don't think it was. Lord, what was her name?
Jamie was,
Jamie. Thank you.
yeah.
Wow, that's really bad. Um, I don't think it was her. Might have been. Somebody I thought said that Philly was going to make it close to the Super Bowl. Was that you though? Maybe by
I would
chance?
never have said such a thing last year. I don't think. I think it was Jamie. Could have been Taylor, although Taylor was riding with the Giants last year.
Hmm.
Aside from his Detroit Lions,
Right.
this year I hate to say it, I've been giving more the Eagles more hype, which is hard for me to do as our rival team. But yeah, I mean that was an impressive pick by her if she said that. Now it doesn't sound so impressive to say that because I think a lot of
No.
people are taking that pick and it seems like quite the easy favorite, honestly. But yeah, good for her. For that was definitely not me making that statement. I'll tell you that much.
So kudos to you, Jamie, if you do listen.
hmm
Kudos to you. First things first, Detroit. They were just so close, Sarah, to the playoffs. I mean, they
hmm
were so close. Um, Obviously, a lot of hype with
Yep.
them. A lot of people thinking that they can win the NFC North, which it's possible. Seeing what we saw, Jordan Love with Green Bay, Minnesota and Kirk Cousins, you just don't know week in and week
hmm
out what you're going to get. The Bears are trying to figure back out with their identity. Um, when it comes to Chicago. Of course, they add starters on the defensive side: Jack Campbell, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, um, Cameron Sutton, another one. I think Brian Branch as well. So, list goes on for Detroit. Offensively, they looked really good. I know a lot of people question that that first round selection, but it is what it is at this point. You look at Detroit from your standpoint, kind of top off things. Are you buying the hype, Sarah, or are you still on the fence when it comes to this young, feisty Lions team led by a
Yeah.
really talented head coach in Campbell?
hmm I mean, I can't help but fall for the hype. I like Dan Campbell. I
Yep.
think he's all in. I think the players are all in with his mentality. They've had, last year to kind of grow and work through and learn how to win, honestly, because they were an organization that was not
Yeah.
happening in the past years prior to that. So I really do hope they live up to the hype and, their division's a little bit more wide open without the Packers being who they normally are this year. I do think the Vikings would probably be their biggest competitor, but even so, the Vikings, I mean, to me, I feel more, I don't see them taking like a next huge step up. Obviously, Jefferson is incredible, but otherwise,
Right.
they seem a little bit of, mediocrity. And I hope the Lions can keep it together. I think in Dan Campbell's coaching enough that I think he'll allow them to have that composure and hopefully not get too, wrapped up in everything from a hype standpoint. But Jared Goff's been, to Super Bowl before.
Hmm.
He's a leader. He's been on that big stage. So I think that they're going to be a very fun team to watch this year. I mean, I'm definitely rooting for them. I don't know anyone who's rooting against them. I guess interdivisional teams maybe, but even so, do they really have that hatred for the Lions after all this time? Probably not. Like the Packers, I
Right.
think everyone's kind of ganged up on them, right? So I think they're going to be fun to watch. I hope they come through. And I think Jared Goff, honestly, will be key to that because we all know Dan Campbell can do it, I think. It's just whether he can put that counterpart, or have that counterpart in Goff on the field, stepping up, making those
Yep.
plays, keeping the turnovers down.
No, I think that's the key. I think to the success of the season. They finished, excuse me, they finished off really well. Towards the end of last year, heading into literally the final week. But you look at Detroit and offensively, picking up David Montgomery, the running back out of with the Bears, of course, the Iowa State product, and well, I think Graham Glasgow, which is an interesting pickup on the offensive line. I know from him from Denver, but defensive wise, they picked up what I thought was some areas that they needed, especially in that secondary. I really like the C.J. Gardner Johnson pickup. Um,
Mm-hmm.
a little bummed he didn't go to Denver, but no, I can't be mad at him. But you look at I know Jameer Gibbs. I think the running back out of Alabama. I think is a pick that a lot of people were skeptical on. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I like it, but I know I'm a Lions fan, so I'm going to of course like it. But
Yeah.
excuse me, but no. Going back to Stafford, I think Stafford's the key. They got the weapons, the backfield's loaded, and the running
Mm-hmm.
back core, and the offensive line looks really good. So, again, they got the line that can help create explosive runs, regardless of who their back is, and you got a quarterback that, like you mentioned, he's been there in the Super Bowl before. So
Mm-hmm.
now Dan Campbell's got to put the pieces together. He's got them now. I mean, the team
Yep.
is in the running to where he can make that run now. But it's
Yeah.
Detroit. The fact that we're talking playoffs is kind of cool, but kind of funny at the
I know.
same time. But
It
it's going to
is.
be interesting.
It is. It's definitely going to be a fun division to watch, like I said. And I think it would be just nice. I mean, I feel kind of bad because no one's talking about the Bears in that division. Like, we just recorded our podcast earlier. And we are talking about our predictions for divisional winners. And I just realized neither of us even mentioned the Bears literally once the whole podcast,
No,
even talking about competitors. But yeah, I mean, it could be theirs. If the Bears put a good season together, I think it's nice to have that division kind of shift just because the Packers have been so dominant that honestly it's been kind of written off unless you're a fan of any of those teams. And now, that it's a little bit more wide open. I think it'll be fun to watch any of those teams, but I think most people are probably pulling for the Lions.
I think this year, I think even Packer fans, I know as much as they don't like a lot of the teams in that division. I think this year you have to have an exception to
Hmm.
Detroit simply because it's good that we're talking about Detroit. It's good, and it's good for football.
Yeah.
Obviously Green Bay, I don't really see them being much of a threat in the NFC North. Jordan Love, and along with a lot of positions, I think is going to be the key for them. But Minnesota, I like Kirk, but I don't. They're so inconsistent at times.
Yeah.
Poor Justin Jefferson. I just wish he can go somewhere with a quarterback. But it's going to be interesting. I think Detroit. My way too early prediction. I do think they will win the NFC North. I don't think Chicago's gonna be as bad as people say, but I definitely don't got them winning the North though.
Yeah. Agreed. And I know I'm like jumping ahead on your questions
No,
here,
you're
but I
good.
guess since we're talking on it,
Nope.
with Dalvin Cook and where he lands, that's a shift for the Vikings there. And I don't think he's going to any team within that division, at least from from what I've seen. But yeah. Um,
My good friends from Urban Raj and Herbert Raj from their own podcast, Urban Raj podcast. Check him out. Definitely give him a listen. He heard that Jordan Love is going to be the best quarterback in the NFC.
wow. Who's his source, I wonder? I would like to speak to that person.
Yeah, Raj and Herb. I need to. We need to hear from your
We need your sources.
resources. What's your source? But Jordan, I think Jordan Love can be decent. I don't know. He was all right at Utah State. That's about much as I know from him. But um, what we were talking about?
Dalvin Cook, right?
Dalvin Cook.
I
Yes,
think,
thank you.
yeah.
Jordan Love definitely threw me off on that one. It's
Hmm.
gonna be interesting. Where do you think Dalvin Cook lands? Because I really now I'll be honest with you. I'm gonna be a little homer on this one. I really thought Miami simply because he's a Florida kid. He went to Florida State, played phenomenal, of course, with Seminoles. Had a great college career. It doesn't look like that might be the that might not be the option. Where do you
Hmm.
think, Sarah, that Dalvin Cook lands?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely seems like, from what I can tell, he's not in any rush to go anywhere anytime
Right.
soon. Maybe he wants the summer off. I don't really know. But I too was thinking Miami honestly might be a good fit. And I mean, I think I would definitely be hyping on their train if that were the case, because I think Miami is, definitely a very talented team.
Yep.
From everything that I've read and, seen, it seems like the Jets at this point have the best odds, which I don't know. Are they trying to build like some little super team over there or what? But if that's the case, I mean, I think that just puts even more pressure on them as an organization, which I don't really know is a good thing, to be honest.
Yeah.
New York teams just kind of have this tendency, I feel like, to, be built up. Mostly thinking about the New York Mets right now. But
Hmm.
they have teams, to be built up. Rodgers, they're going to be under a lot of pressure with him going there this year. And I think it's going to be a boom or bust situation. And that's going to be all the more amplified expectations increase if that's where Dalvin Cook lands. I mean, I'm sure that Rodgers would love to have him just as a weapon, help him out, in terms of the offense. So I think that's what seems like the most likely. Do I love it for the Jets? Honestly, no, but not from a football perspective, more from a superstition
Yep.
side of things in terms of just building those expectations. But from what I've read, seen, I think that probably sounds like, it'd be, I think, a decent move on his part.
I could see, it's gonna be interesting. I definitely agree with you. I think the New York teams are so much hype, but the media is obviously, um, the media is definitely too harsh, but at the same time, it's harsh. And of course, I'm a Yankee fan, so we get the hype, and we just don't really do anything after that. But um, Dalvin Cook's interesting. I do agree with you. I don't think he's going to rush this. And I'm going to pick your head on this one because this is a team that we're going to talk about, and it's not in the mile high. I don't see him going to Denver. Um, Dallas. I know we're still on Dalvin Cook. We obviously Tony Pollard got franchise
Hmm.
tagged. They, I guess, have a backup. I guess, but could you see potentially Cook going to Dallas?
I don't know if they're willing to pay for him at
Right.
this point. You get not burned, I guess you got good production out of Zeke for his time there, but
Hmm.
I'm not sure they're necessarily looking to take on, any sort of big contract at this point. That's not already someone in-house from here. So do I think he'd be an awesome fit? Yes, but I'm also a little excited to see what Tony Pollard can do as, lead RB1, not having to split
Hmm.
things with Zeke. So I don't really know if fit wise it would be the best right now, just with what the Cowboys are trying to do. I think with salary cap and just where they stand, and I think it is in their best interest, honestly, to just stay low and not pay any big amount to any further running backs or receivers from here at this point. I mean, CD's coming up and he's going to have a huge contract if they want to keep
Yes.
him. Obviously, Zeke got astronomical amounts of money and, shouldn't have made as much as he did for those
Hmm.
final years. He's not out of the question either, too. I mean, people are saying he's still working out with Dak, that he's, likely going to be back in Dallas if no one picks him up. Which, if he's coming in at the league minimum, that's fine.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
yeah, and I think we could still get some solid production out of him. I think at this point we just need a little support for Pollard and like letting CD kind of flourish, and from his standpoint of wide receiver. So I feel like the offense is, I don't want to say set because you can always improve, but I think they have their game plan.
I like that. I think Dallas can be, like you said, I think it's definitely not big money. I don't know what Cook is. I mean, I don't know what Cook is asking, and
Yeah.
but I think Dallas could be a dark horse team. And by the way, here's your source that I'm going to assume that it's Raj is the one that's is sending out this. J.R. Alexander is your source regarding Jordan Love to
Okay.
as a best quarterback, and then he agrees. He's of course a Miami fan. He thinks Cook to Miami, and then Detroit can make the playoffs. Questions: can they win a playoff game?
Mm.
That's a
That
good
is a good
question.
question.
Yep.
It is a very good question. I think it depends how this is like not, I mean, I guess the most well thought out answer, but kind of in that I think it depends on how they get into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're stumbling their way in there, and kind of like falling apart, maybe got an early lead in division, kind of just maintain their record and fell apart basically I don't think so. But if they come in like they're dominant this year, they have confidence, they're performing well, high function on the both offense, keeping turnovers low. I do think that they actually have the opportunity. It depends on who they're playing. Do I think they could beat like the 49ers if they face them off in the first round? Absolutely not. And probably not even any NFC East teams unless somehow we're sneaking like the Commanders in the last, which unlikely. But yeah, I think it depends really on how their season goes and how they keep their composure and everything together.
Not to change the subject because this is definitely it's gonna be a quick change of subject.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this. It just tweeted out roughly 30 minutes ago. Um, thoughts and prayers. The NFL tweeted out the NFL. Here's what the NFL said on the tweet: the NFL family is deeply saddened by the passing of Ryan Mallett.
I did not see that.
Of course, our thoughts are with his family, loved ones. So, former Patriot. Of course, I know him from Arkansas
Mm-hmm.
during his college days. I know he spent some time in different teams um, throughout the NFL, and so the NFL for some reason I got a notification. I guess that tweet, but anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
Ryan Mallett passing away.
it looks like a drowning is what I just like briefly Googled. That's awful. Wow.
So definitely a
Oh,
prayers and thoughts towards his
yeah,
family, and
your heart's go out to them. Huh?
absolutely. Hmm. Um, that's sad.
Yeah.
No, Detroit. I know. I'm trying to go back from sad back to football.
Yeah.
Detroit. Detroit. This is Herb. I am officially tuning out. So insulting. Uh, I'm guessing because I maybe potentially called him Raj. I have no idea. Herb, fill me in. But Detroit, like you said, it's going to really matter where they get the position, especially if they have a really good year to where they can
hmm
sneak in. Because, in my opinion, besides I think Philly is beatable, but I still think they could reign supreme in the NFC. I mean, you can laugh what you want, or people out there. I know a buddy of mine. He kind of thought it was funny and pointless what I said, but I really think the Lions could easily be a probably 2 seed in the NFC because it's so wide open this year with the
hmm
downfall of a lot of teams and Dallas. Talent wise, they're there, but you just you don't know
Yeah.
really what you're going to get
hmm
out of them, unfortunately. So,
No.
Philly is Philly. As always, I was expecting to be back to where they were. So it's going to be interesting this year with Detroit. I think they're going to really have a good year, but hopefully it's not more hype than it was anything
Yeah.
else. I'll be a
Agreed.
little. I'll be sad. Speaking of
Yeah.
Dallas, obviously you are a Dallas Cowboy fan, and
hmm
your thoughts on Dallas. Of course, they're hoping that this year is actually their year. I know a lot of Cowboy fans say it. It's
It's
been
always our year.
26
It's always
years.
our year.
It's been roughly what 25, 26 years since they
hmm
last won the Super Bowl. But you had quite a bit of staff changes, roster changes. Um, you know, um, what's his name? I can see his face. Um, the offensive coordinator.
Oh, Kellen Moore.
Yes,
Yeah,
more.
he's
I know
gone.
he's gone, and
hmm
a little. I was a little. Now, were you surprised by that? Real quick, were you surprised by Moore's release?
No, well, only because I feel like that's the next, sort of step here and like this plan, like up. They've consistently they've been pretty solid seasons, but underperforming, right, based on their talent level, and they couldn't get rid of Dak last year, so they couldn't make a quarterback change, and it was clear, like
Right.
offensive. The defense was firing on all cylinders. Dan Quinn's phenomenal. He's what I think is probably next in line for coach if McCarthy can't pull it off this year.
Hmm.
So it had to be Kellen Moore, and that's like the next step, right? Like from here on the chopping block is either Dak and or McCarthy if they don't get it done. So not surprised by it. Honestly, he was, deemed as some genius, boy genius early on in his career, but towards the last few years it became more and more evident that either what I've read he's kind of butt heads with McCarthy sometimes, but he also just was not changing up schemes at all. Like they were consistently just either running similar or the same plays. And, he has all these weapons, underutilizing them. I think he doesn't let Dak throw the ball nearly enough. They obviously had a really good run game, but I just feel like he just wasn't utilizing their talent appropriately. And people got fed up, and you could see it down the stretch. I mean, teams were able to game plan for them
Hmm.
so well in late season games. They got absolutely outcoached by the 49ers 2 years in a row in the playoffs. And the defense did all they could against that strong offensive squad. So it was clearly on an offensive stand. So I think it was justified. I mean, I was a fan of him for the most part, but I get it. Something has to change, and it wasn't your quarterback, it wasn't your head coach. So where do you go from there?
Yeah.
It had to be him. I think he's with the Chargers now, so
Hmm.
that'll be interesting. I mean, I'm sure he's going to get a lot of accolades because Justin Herbert is very talented. So he'll make anyone look
Yes.
good. So yeah, but in terms of the hopes for 2023, I'm not going to sit here and say it's our year. I've learned better than that over the past few years. I don't say that anymore. But what I predicted them at when we did our like early season predictions, it sounds crazy, but I took them at 13-4 with a loss in the NFC, with the loss losing the NFC East to the Eagles. I think
Right.
they're gonna base. I think what's probably gonna happen come out of there is they'll probably split between those two games, but then the Eagles might have a slightly better record because I don't see Eagles losing to more than four teams. But in terms of playoff hopes, I think at this point, an NFC Championship appearance, if not win, is really what is needed for either Mike McCarthy or Dak to stick around. And that's just going to depend on Dak's numbers, right? Whether it's him
Right.
or
Of course.
McCarthy. I hope, I'm a big Dak Prescott fan. I've never been a fan of Mike McCarthy since the very beginning, which people tell me is a classic Cowboys fan move.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I hope we need big production from Dak. He needs to prove his worth. He got a massive contract. He needs to, make a playoff push.
Hmm.
And I mean, he's going into, I think it's year 8. So that's up there
Yeah.
for sure. So we need big numbers from him, and we cannot have Mike McCarthy being the one to hold them back. And to be honest, I've been very unimpressed by some of his like clock management and late game plays. I mean, we've all seen how their playoff
Hmm.
runs have ended the past 2 years in a row. Like
Oh yeah.
absurdity. Dak running up the middle of the field, 14 seconds left to go. Zeke getting absolutely wrecked on that last play call against the 49ers. Poor Zeke, like possibly going out as his last career game with that play call. So I'm not totally sold on Mike McCarthy for those reasons. I think he obviously had success in Green Bay, but
Yep.
it was that Aaron Rodgers, who knows. So I think it's going to be a big year, and I feel like it sounds crazy to say that like they need an NFC Championship appearance, if not win. Otherwise, one of those two is gone. But I think that has to be it at this point because otherwise they're just continuing to perform, and they have phenomenal players on their team. I mean, I think like Trayvon Diggs, Micah
Hmm.
Parsons, CeeDee Lamb all have potential to be Hall of Famers if their careers progress as they have been.
No, I like those two the two comments. I'm gonna ask you a question and leading back to going back. Um Herbert Raj. Herb says I predict that Dallas wins the division, but he still thinks it's gonna be Philly and San Fran to the Super Bowl. And then here's a great question. I'm gonna have you touch on this one, which I was gonna lead to this one, but I'll let him ask it for you. Dak gets paid like over 100 mil over the next 2 years. Do they still do an extension or wait out and see what happens?
I think you wait and see and make him perform at this point. I mean, I really like Dak, but he's made a lot of money this far, and I think he's the first one to say it too. You've told his interviews, that he knows that this is the expectation
Hmm.
here, and I don't think it's for a lack of trying on his part. I think it's just scheme or however he's been playing, but he has to get it together. So I think you wait and see how it goes. I mean, like I said, year 8 too. That's not young. Quarterbacks last a long
No.
time in the a long time. But if you're not like, I don't want to get stuck in this like Kirk Cousins kind of like just going on, for years of mediocrity sort of thing
Right.
here with the Cowboys and Dak. And I don't think Jerry Jones or his family wants that either.
No, and as much as I know a lot of people don't like Jerry Jones, I don't think that's fair to him. That I mean, I get it's part of how ownership, but at the same time, you still got to perform. And that leads to my question I was going to originally ask before I wanted to share Herbert and Rogers. Sean Payton is obviously now officially off the quote unquote coaching market, if you will. And I
Mhm.
know there was a lot of talk that Sean Payton could be seen in Dallas and this, that, and something
Mhm.
else. I thought it was going to happen after last season, but
Me too.
obviously it didn't. Not bragging, but it didn't, which I was a little more surprised than that than us getting them. But with Sean Payton being off the market now, let's play devil's advocate. Dallas still does Dallas things, have a great regular season, falter. I don't, they could win. Let's say even
Yeah.
win one playoff game, but losing the second round. If and would imagine Mike McCarthy gets fired, who would you like to see at the helm in Dallas?
Yeah. I think Dan Quinn, and I think that that's the plan. Honestly, I don't know. This is
Right,
obviously like all fan speculation,
of
but
course.
why else would he have not gone anywhere else where he could definitely be
Yep.
easily at a head coaching position? I'm sure he loves being, the defensive coordinator. He seems to be, obviously very involved. He's, great hype guy for all of them, but I think that's the plan. And I wouldn't be surprised with how I feel like Jerry Jones has run things traditionally if he has
Hmm.
made him fully aware that that is the
Yep.
plan. And not to say, Quinn's maybe hoping for that because obviously he's going to have the team produce this year because that's an inflection on him as well. But I think that's the plan behind the scenes. And I definitely would support it. I mean, I love what he's done with their defense. They were very, very bad. Time is blurred, probably like even 3 years ago in this time. Like they struggled, and they've really been able to build up their secondary. Obviously, they have phenomenal guys like Micah Parsons, but he's been able to turn even just some guys who've been existing prolonged players and use them in schemes different ways. And I just love what he does. I mean, they were leading the league in turnovers, last season or the season
Hmm.
before that, probably the past two, honestly, with Trayvon's performance, the year before. Um, so they've been, incredible. So I think it would be definitely warranted to give him the position too and see what he does, back in the head coaching realm.
And of course they made that trade for Stephon Gilmore, which gives Dan Quinn another weapon, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and then offensively, Brandon Cooks. I know it's probably not
Yes.
Cooks that we've seen in the past, but still gives Dak another,
Mm-hmm.
another weapon and puts some pressure off of CD where they can double team him. And I mean he'll
Mm-hmm.
still do CD things, and I still think he has a great year. But no, I think Dallas. I really do. I know. I talk bad about him probably more times than I actually say good things about him. I do think that Dallas will actually have a great year. It's going to be interesting, really interesting what happens. Let's just assuming Dallas does what they always say, what Dallas does, what Dallas does, and falters.
Mm-hmm.
So real quick, and then we move on. What do you think, jokingly, what do you think Ezekiel Elliott was thinking in his head on that final play? What we
Oh,
would assume would be his final play. Obviously, the final play as a Cowboy.
yeah. Honestly, like, I don't know why he didn't go up in arms and, like, form a mutiny because that, like, to me, that just, like, it's weird, but in a way, it felt so perfect at the same time because it was just, like, that's how that game just collapsed. Where I was like, this is the perfect summary for the end of our season. Like, I immediately turned the TV off. I was like, Zeke just got absolutely rocked on that last play. And he had to be like, what the hell, man? Like, when they called that play, he had to have been. I don't know. I mean, oh, I don't know. Sometimes with their play calls, I have to like think like I don't know how much. I mean, I was never in a quarterback or play football. How much like
Right.
go back and forth goes where the quarterback can really override. Especially I mean, that was McCarthy who called that play. Or he's at least approving it. How much of you was like fighting
Oh
back on that? Because
God.
I would be, but that one hurt honestly. Like, and seeing all the replays and tweets about it the next day hurt a little bit more because it was embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie, it was very embarrassing. And
Yep.
even leading up to that, I'm not gonna harp on it too much because if you get me going, I get so upset about it. But you know, Dalton Schultz, their tight end,
Yep.
that same
Mm-hmm.
freaking drive was just trying to preserve his career and his injuries and would like he just was literally just going down instead of fighting to get out of bounds. And it was crucial, absolutely crucial. Two plays in a row. Like you need to know what you're doing. And I don't know. I'm saying that he could have just been not football aware, which is probably even worse than trying to, preserve your career. But he's no longer there. I mean, he got a lot of hype, and he was a decent,
Oh
he
yeah.
put up pretty good numbers for us. But for me, that attitude and everything like that. I was just like, this literally is the worst last drive I've ever seen in football. And it just, they didn't deserve to win at that point. So I was like, I'll turn the TV off, call it off, maybe next year. And that's it.
So, last one, and we'll move on for sure. Last one, 'cause I gotta finish this now. What's the worst way to end your season? Um, Dak Prescott running up the middle with no timeouts,
Oh,
and the play ending obviously because the play never got off,
yeah.
or Dak or Zeke getting waylaid at the trying to block for Dak.
I honestly think the Zeke block is probably better than Dak running up the middle because at least like Dak running up the middle, you were just like, what the hell? Like
Right.
what was that play call? Like, and he was so close. The ref like tried to body slam him and got in the way.
Yep.
And that one just like was so perplexing. Where this was just like you're like, we deserve to lose. Like we deserve it. And then you can eat it and you can be like, okay, like this was a deserved loss. I'll get on with it. So I think we can move on now, though, because I feel sad enough as a Cowboys fan right now.
Yeah, we're definitely moving on. No, it was. I like to get your thoughts on. Yeah, I can
Mhm.
now officially see Zeke. See Zeke getting waylaid. Now it'd be interesting who picks him up if anybody does at this point.
Mhm.
Um. Oh, Tyreek Hill. I know there's an incident. Let me look it up real quick. Unless you know more about it than I do. I know somebody brought it to my attention this past week, and
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie, I completely. Um, so I guess there's assaults. So we had
Yeah.
another Tyreek Hill incident, assaulting some people. Or let me pull it
Mhm.
up real quick. I want to
I
say
think
the
it was at a
actual.
boat marina or something. I just honestly saw the headline when I was on vacation. I saw when I was on vacation at the airport, actually.
Let's see.
Um, so I don't know too much on the details of it.
So correct, yeah, he was on a boat. He allegedly hit a 57-year-old man in the head. Now, of course, it's being now investigated and as an assault case for Mr. Tyreek. Um, really doesn't go much onto it. Just talks about his past and, of
Yeah.
course, what Miami should and shouldn't do. We know what Tyreek. This isn't sadly this isn't his first time, and
Mhm.
hopefully it's his last. I don't know. Obviously, he's got a trend. I would hate to, I don't think it
Mhm.
would be lying to say he probably wouldn't be. I know he has some off the field issues up here, up here in Oklahoma. Of course, at Oklahoma State University, where at the time assaulted his pregnant girlfriend. I think that might have been his now wife. I'm not for sure how that all
Mhm.
worked out, but anyway, should the league get involved with Tyreek at this point? Because obviously, it's not his first time. It's Sally probably not going to be his last. I hate saying that. But should the
Yeah.
league get involved? I know the league tries not to get involved as much as possible, but in an
Right.
incident in this case where this isn't something that it's common with Tyreek Hill, could you see the
Yeah.
league get involved? And if so, at this point, what needs to happen for Tyreek, in your opinion, obviously, because
Yeah.
this is starting to be a trend in his
Mhm.
off-season issues.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to think that the league has enough like resources,
Right.
for him to help him get help he needs in wherever regard that is, based on whether it's, mental health conditions, CTE, just anger management, whatever the reasoning behind his, behavior is. I would like to think their league has enough, psychologists, doctors, physicians, people who
Yeah.
can, help either like diagnose, get the appropriate treatment and things like that. So I would think from that intervention standpoint, I would hope they're doing that, right? Like you think about it, this is a job for these guys, right? So that's where they're receiving, their health insurance, their health care, and like their support, for things like that. Because obviously their livelihood and stuff is
Hmm.
impacted if they can't play. So do I think it's the league's like responsibility to get involved? I don't know on that one,
Right.
honestly. I think they should definitely offer the resources and whether they make that something mandatory for him to participate in some sort of treatment or rehab or, therapeutic sessions. I don't know on that. I guess that I would have to know like more details that we're none of us are probably ever going to know in
Right.
terms of like
Exactly.
frequency of this sort of thing. But I would hope that the league at least offers some sort of intervention and depending upon what level they feel necessary, knowing the information that they know. But yeah, I mean, it's just a shame to see, he's a very talented player and it's
Hmm.
hard because I like to watch him play, you find yourself rooting for him just because he's so fun on the field.
Right.
But then when you have stuff like this happening off the field, it definitely, causes a distaste in your mouth that you really don't want to support them anymore. And you just hope that the league, and he's able to get the help he needs if he wants to,
Yeah.
and with the encouragement needed.
No, I'm with you on that. I think the league's, obviously we don't know this whole situation with this incident. I don't know, was it a thing to where maybe the guy went after him first? I don't, there's a lot of details I'm sure we don't know and probably will never
Right.
know. But obviously, it's a common thing that we're seeing with him, regardless if it's a male or female. I think, like you said, I think the league would have, I would hope at least, they would have enough resources to where, hey, Tyreek, let's, I know right before, we got training camp coming up, but hey, can we take a few weeks with you? Or,
Hmm.
something that's got to be during a season. Hey, accountability person. I don't know what that
Yeah.
looks like and what the league may do, but it's just sad. I mean, it's a talented kid. Heck, we're watching him up at Oklahoma State. I mean, he's a talented kid and or guy now, but talented athlete. Just these off the field issues. It's kind of disappointing to see because
Hmm.
you hate seeing when literally you got everything handed to you in the good way, not like oh we're just
Hmm.
throwing stuff at him. But no, I mean I'm not going to talk much of it because obviously I don't know the details and stuff
Yeah.
behind closed doors with this incident. But hopefully he gets the help if that's if what needs be, and hopefully
Hmm.
something gets out of it for him because hate to see that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Denver,
Mm. I'm
I know
excited to talk about them.
Denver, of course, off season. I think some have them winning the off season. I'm sure probably just from a coaching standpoint. I don't know what else we would have won
Yeah.
by. Gave got some help for Russ on the O line. Got
Hmm.
Samaje P Ryan, which is a decent pickup in the running back core. Last year was pretty rough. That was a pretty rough ordeal for Russell Wilson and company. Really, I don't know where to even go from last year. This was
Yeah.
really, really, really bad. Russell didn't look like a Russell that we knew from the past
Mm-mm.
at
No.
all, and you can tell that oh, you can tell that the players got frustrated with Russell. You
Hmm.
see a lot.
Oh yeah.
Judy was
Hmm.
Judy did against Indy in probably the most boringest Thursday night football I think in history. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's got to be.
The memes were priceless, honestly,
Oh,
coming
the
out of
memes were
Denver last year.
hilarious.
A lot of good memes.
They've I think Denver wins that. How many memes
Hmm.
can we come up with? The Let's Ride was getting really.
Yeah. Do we
That
think
was
that's done? Like, do you think
well.
someone was
It's
like,
now
someone in
uncommon.
his circle,
It's
someone in his circle
uncommon.
was like, stop doing that.
I think Sean Payne's like, dude, we ain't doing this.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
gonna, whatever the previous coaching staff did, hey, whatever. But I'm not doing
Mm.
this. KJ, he obviously expressed his frustration on the field against Indy when he took his helmet off and threw it and said all kinds of words. It was really bad on the field and even just coaching. I mean, the whole
Yeah.
show was just bad.
Hmm.
Fast forward to this off season, you got Sean Payton. I hate to trade for him, but it is what it is. You got
Hmm.
Sean Payton. Russell looks like he's getting skinnier, which maybe that was the issue. I don't really know. They
Hmm.
gave him some help on the O line, which I've always thought was the issue.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting with Denver. Really
Hmm.
interesting on what they do because you don't know what the bad thing, and this is where I think Dalvin Cook comes into play somewhere down the road, is Javonte Williams.
Hmm.
He can be a stud in the league. I hope he doesn't turn out to be like a TD
Hmm.
where injuries cut his career really, really short. We
Hmm.
don't know how healthy he's going to be. Question mark. The receiving core should be perfectly fine. Um, Offensive line should be better. Hopefully, Russ can't get any worse than he was last year. I hate saying that. He just
Yeah.
can't. Defense should be perfectly fine. PS2 is a stud in the secondary along with Simmons. Of course, getting Frank Clark and hopefully get healthy Randy Gregory and stuff like that. But it's going to be interesting. Last year was really, really so bad. I think I just gave up. I shouldn't say gave up on him, but it's like nothing else at this point matters.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to be interesting. I know Raj and Herb asked a question, and we'll get to that. here in a second, but it was bad, Sarah.
It
It
was.
was really bad in
I think
Denver.
the good news for you though is if anyone can come back from the I think what they must have had emotional turmoil that Russell Wilson faced last year. Like
Yeah,
not many people can hear all of that noise and feel all that animosity towards them and like come back from that without their confidence being shook. But I think Russell Wilson can because he's just all in his own little
yep.
world of all of this. He is very religious. I think he just is able to tune that stuff out and just keep riding like he likes to do. And I think that, I hopefully, because I honestly think that could have been like a career breaker for some people. I mean, me personally, I would never be able to hear all of that criticism, even from my own teammates and things like that, and come back and be the same player from a mental standpoint. So I think that he will always do that. I think Sean Payton will help him, give him the tools, like you said. I mean, that's what I saw from just an outsider looking in on their off season too, that they've definitely been working to build up that line, which has to give him some confidence and stuff too, and obviously will allow him to play better. So, I mean, their defense is very solid.
Hmm.
I've always been a Randy Gregory fan of his play, not his off the field antics and,
Yep.
temper and such, but he's very talented. So if you can get him healthy and in control, minimizing penalties, he can really help lead that defense too. So, I mean, I think they definitely have potential for sure. And I don't think, like you said, there's just no way it can be as bad as last year. There's no way. You can literally only go up from here. And that's reassuring.
Nathaniel Hackett and during Broncos country hashtag treads and trends and all that. Who's the worst coach in history? And Nathaniel Hackett's name was brought up, and of course Vance, what I would consider to be up there. Which coming back to Denver um, as a D coordinator, whose fault would you say? Obviously, Nathaniel Hackett's time management. We go back like
Yeah.
Mike McCarthy. Time management really killed, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
positions. There's a lot of possessions that Denver had due to lack of time management from his part. Seattle, for
hmm
example, that
hmm
and Indy too many times, just to name a few. But who was to blame? I know. I mean, obviously, a head coach. You go from the top, and everything literally falls to the bottom. So you have to helm, and you're
Yeah.
responsible. But it was really a mixture of both. Do
I
you
think
think
I was
that
going
they
to say,
just jumped
yeah.
the gun too quick on Nathaniel? It just had to quit the bleeding, so to speak.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know it's a cop out answer, but I think it was just honestly this perfect bad, terrible storm of both, where Hackett maybe was not yet ready, and then like he was worse because things were faltering from a quarterback standpoint, right? Like he wasn't getting the production that he probably thought he was getting out of Russell Wilson. Next thing you know, like the offense is turning on Russ, the defense, and then there's just generalized like turmoil, which is terrible for
Hmm.
a head coach. Like I can't even imagine. That's a very difficult to thrive in that environment, as a head coach, especially a new one, not, even a seasoned veteran, I think would have a hard time with a locker room that's falling apart. So I think it was unfortunately this, perfect storm of whether it was the
Yep.
chicken or egg came first, like Hackett's coaching lost the locker room's trust or Russell Wilson's poor performance kind of just got things off.
Hmm.
Especially they had a lot of hype going into the season because of it. And that
Yep.
only contributed, I think, to making things worse was that the fact that they went in, people were saying they could, have a chance at winning that division. And I think when it was clear that things weren't heading in that direction,
Yeah.
obviously that only makes everyone else a little bit more unhappy and then a little bit, less into their job and things like that. And it spirals from there.
Yeah, I think it's just a mixture. I mean, the inexperience at the head coaching position, I'm sure it killed. But at that point, Denver's gone through so many assistants as head coaches, Vance Joseph being one. That it's worth a shot. Of course, and
Hmm
I really do believe that their end goal was to bring in Hackett, was to bring in Aaron Rodgers. I really
Yeah.
believe that was the well. If we can bring in Nathaniel, maybe that's our way of getting
Yeah.
Rodgers. I
hmm
don't know what happened. I don't know, if anything even. I don't even know if Denver pursued him. I really don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't know why Aaron didn't end up there. But it's interesting that the locker room even started to express their thoughts on Russ, and a lot of times, oftentimes than not, it was not definitely wasn't good.
Yeah.
I would say bounce back this year. If they can make the playoffs, I think that'd be something. I don't have them winning the division. I think right now they're just too. You don't know what they're going to have. Russ is the biggest piece.
hmm
Um, Real quick, and then leads to this question: has either Denver or the Chargers done enough to win a division. I was about to say San Diego. I think the Chargers. I don't think either team really wins the division, but I think the Chargers are in a better position than Denver is just because
Agreed.
of the quarterback position.
Agreed. Herbert's talented. He's only going to continue to grow, I think,
Yep.
from here. So I think they're in the better position. And, they have a new, like I said, Kellen Moore, a new offensive
Hmm.
coordinator coming in. So we'll see what he can do for them too. But yeah, I think I really like Justin Herbert. I think he's a very good, quarterback. He's talented. He's exciting. And they had a lot of just injuries and, stupid, ridiculous, bad coaching moves and stuff. So I think if he's in the right environment, he definitely has more talent to get them there.
And I think Herbert. I like Herbert a lot. I think he'll eventually get there. Russ, Herb. I think Russ on that one. He's gonna make or break their season. We know
Hmm.
what Sean Payton can do as a coach. We know that.
Yeah.
I think Russ really decides how far Denver goes, and we'll see. Speaking of
Hmm.
quarterbacks, going to Tom Brady real quick. This shouldn't take
Hmm.
up too much time, but Tom Brady. I know a lot of people have those. I don't know if you've seen those conspiracy theories where
Yeah.
you got Tom Brady who they're trying to reach out in Las Vegas, for example, be part
Hmm.
owner and stuff like this. Do you, I've asked this question. I think he's personally done. His play last year
Yeah.
was pretty bad. Do you think he's done, or could you
Yeah.
see him make a very, very late last playoff push with a team that just, hey, Tom, come play with us and finish out the season in the postseason,
I
I should say?
mean, I initially said no because I just think he's done too. I think he was aware of his play towards the end of last year, and he's just not someone who's going to go out there and not be the best that he can
Yeah.
be. If the right situation presented, which is probably like a 0.1% chance, like the right team with a good offensive line, maybe a good run game, like honestly, like a San Francisco or someone like that, like for some
Ooh,
reason needed a quarterback late
right.
in the season to just like throw in there if all other options were exhausted, you can never rule that out. I think he would be the go-to anyone would be looking for. But again, it's hard to maintain yourself in football shape. So is that really realistic? Maybe for Tom Brady, but yeah, I think like 99.9% chance that he's definitely done, and we'll see him in the booth next year with Fox.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't. I really don't see him playing. He reminds me so much of Peyton Manning in Super Bowl 50 year that he probably overstayed his stay, but I get why you still play because that's what you're used to, and they're both really
Mm-hmm.
good at it. It was so towards the end, it was so bad for
It was
Brady that
mm-hmm.
I was like, dude,
Hanging
you
up,
need to give
hanging
it
up.
up.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We got a little jokester here. Herb thought you were talking about him and said that he was talented, but obviously you were referring to
I haven't seen your tape yet, Herb, but maybe. Who knows?
Herb. Send her some tape, and you might be. And then apparently you just cursed San Francisco's quarterbacks for the next year.
Wow. I mean, it seems like they're already the way the last year's season went for them as quarterbacks in the playoffs, they might
Yep.
already be cursed, but
Last one as we wrap up as we head
Mhm.
down the home stretch. Who can dethrone Kansas City, in
Mm.
your opinion?
This is hard. No one, it seems like I want to say, but if I have to pick someone, I do think the Bengals have a good shot this
Ooh,
year. Injuries aside, because I feel like Burrow is key for them.
absolutely.
But they've been working on that offensive line. I think if they're able to continue to give him more protection, I just think obviously super talented. I think he has like the mind and skill set similar to Patrick Mahomes, and that he can just absolutely take over
Yeah.
a team. I'm not saying they're the same type of player per se, but just in their role as a quarterback is just that much higher in what they can do for a team compared to even all other good quarterbacks. Just what they can, change, how they can change the game. So I think the Bengals, the problem is they have to get obviously, past the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl, which is not an
Yeah.
easy feat. I honestly like as long as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are there, it's just really hard to envision the Chiefs not just continuing to do their thing. It's just I don't know what it's gonna take to change that, but that's if I had to pick anyone, I think that the Bengals have the opportunity, to upset them and then make that a Super Bowl push.
I could see Cincinnati. I feel bad for Josh Allen. He's always
Yeah.
got really good teams, and he just can't get over that hump.
No.
Um, I like to throw in Buffalo, but I don't know if I can. They can't beat Kansas City. That's their nemesis, and until
Hmm.
you can beat Kansas City, I can't really bet against bet for you.
Yeah.
NFC, let's see here. South, there's nobody in the South that has a prayer
Oh
of beating
no.
them.
Mm-mm. I don't even know if anyone's
Nobody in
gonna
the
go over
North
500
besides,
in the South.
yeah, in the North you got Cincy. That's about it. The East, there ain't besides Buffalo, but they can't beat them, so that should about wrap them up. In the West, obviously, it feels like nobody can.
No. Yeah, I
Um,
would like to see the Bengals or the Bills get it done. I mean, I'm from New York, and they're definitely my AFC team, but it just seems like they've had so much expectation for them the
yep.
past few years, and they've just underperformed in the playoffs. And this year, the expectations have only built. Honestly, it's more pressure because people, I might feel like they feel their Super Bowl window is actually closing rather than being opened, especially with Diggs and his off season,
Hmm.
off the field off season drama. So I just don't foresee things playing out, as well for them this year. I'm sure they'll be very good, but it's just hard to imagine them making that hump to either beat the Bengals or the Chiefs, to make it to the Super Bowl.
They definitely are, of course, on the Chicago, Lord Jesus, the Cincinnati wagon when it gets to dethroning Kansas City. He's not a believer in Buffalo. Baltimore's interesting. What's your thoughts
Oh,
on Baltimore?
I like that pick actually because I took them as my sleeper Super Bowl team in our
Ah, snap.
predictions. Yeah, I think Lamar is going to have a very good year. And it's obviously all on him with the
Of
Ravens,
course,
as it
right.
always is. But yeah, I think they're probably going to get off to what I think is a slower start, and that's why I think the Bengals are going to win that division. Just because I think Lamar was out a lot with injuries
Hmm.
last year. Who knows where OBJ is going to be at coming back from injury? But I think they'll find their groove, do make a late playoff push, and yeah, I definitely think that they have the opportunity. And they're getting kind of written off by a lot of people, I think, just because they were a little irrelevant last year, while the usual suspects of the Bills, Bengals and Chiefs were kind of all the talk late in the season, and people are now forgetting about the Ravens going into this year. So I agree. I think they're definitely a potential contender.
I don't see. You can be strictly honest. I don't see us at all. But if Russell Wilson goes to Russell Wilson that we know that he can be, I'm not going to say Super Bowl 48. I'm not going to be that selfish. But let's just say he gets to Super Bowl 49. At least get back to what we know he can do. Could you throw in Denver as a dark horse or not just there yet?
With Sean Payton, I think anything is honestly possible. He's a very good coach, I think,
Right.
and like, yeah, Russell Wilson's a very talented player. So if he's able to, return back to his prime or peak form or whatever,
Right.
then I think definitely, I think it's just, again, like Kansas City's that just huge hurdle for anyone, especially with them being in their division.
I asked a question to Miss Teacha, co-host of the show Divided, and the question was, how long does she think that Andy Reid's going to be in Kansas City? So the question gets to you, Sarah, as we head down the stretch. How long do you see Andy Reid coaching
Oh,
left in Kansas City, or just coaching in general? I mean, heck, he may. I don't see
I
him going
know.
anywhere else at this point, but
I don't think he's going anywhere else.
no.
Honestly, I think it depends on their success. If they're able to pull off like an impressive run, maybe win Super Bowl like
Hmm.
two out of the next two or 3 years, I think he might go out on top. Honestly, like why not just walk away gracefully? Again, obviously these guys love the game and it's so much of life, so maybe that's easier
Right.
said than done. But I also could just see him as long as Patrick Mahomes is there, he's there, and Patrick Mahomes is going to be there for a long time.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
but I think there's definitely potential. Like I said, if they have an opportunity to, do something really great, and then let's say, things maybe are a little bit shift in the team aside from just Patrick Mahomes in like 3, 4 years, and they've been able to win maybe two more Super Bowls, I could see him, walking away and making transition at that time.
I think Andy Reid definitely. I think he stays in Kansas City. I think he retires a Chief.
Hmm.
I'm like you. I think they have a chance again this year. They have they really have a chance as long as they stay healthy. I think they should be fine for the next 10 years, if that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm like you. I think he's probably. I'm sure he's got to be itching for retirement. I mean, he's got to at least have a little itch, I would imagine. But I think
Right.
if he wins, even if they repeat this year, I don't think he retires. I think that'd be tough though, because not many teams repeat. I guess that'd
Yeah.
be interesting. I think if he wins a Super Bowl, it'd be curious of how he enters that motive
Yeah.
and go from there. Last topic be a quick one. Your way too early predictions. Who is your playoff teams and then your Super Bowl matchup?
Yes. So, um, way too early predictions. I hate to say this, but I did. I guess I'm starting with the Super Bowl and I'll work back from there.
Mhm.
I did take the Bengals versus the Eagles this year.
I can see that.
Um, yeah, I don't love it, and I hate that I said, but I'm pretty sure I even think like picked an R when we did it as our podcast, the Eagles to win, just because
Right.
they've really
Mhm.
gone all in this year for it, and I guess it's me kind of coping to be like, let's just get this over with because I know they're good and they're going to be good for a while, so I'm like, let's just have them win a Super Bowl and move on with it. Basically, that's my thoughts on it. So I do think, like I said, I'm very hopeful the Cowboys will be, a playoff team. Obviously, Kansas City's in the mix, the
Yep.
Bills. I'm very interested to see about the Jets in that division, what they're able to do with Aaron Rodgers. I think they actually probably are going to be a playoff team this year and then underperform. But again, that also kind of is contingent upon like the Dolphins because that whole
Mhm.
division of the AFC East has an opportunity to kind of beat up on each other, within the division to either make or break Super Bowl hopes for them. I think 49ers will be there probably in the NFC Championship game again against the Eagles. I think they're just a very good, strong team, and they're not going anywhere this year.
I like those. I can't. I got the Eagles definitely, and then unfortunately, I'm not a huge Joe Burrow fan, but I do have Cincy. I think Cincy can be in that. I think Cincy's finally gonna get that year. Herb Final Four, Philly, San Fran, Kansas City, Cincy, which means that absolutely will not happen. So apparently,
Probably not.
apparently his Final Four is definitely not going to take place. But I do have one last question, but it's not from me, Sarah. It is actually from Herb. And there we go. Last question. Is Mike going to be mad when we ask Sarah to be on the Herb and Raj podcast?
I don't know who Mike is, but hopefully not.
Yeah, I'll say I'm definitely not mad
Or are
when you
you?
go
Is he
for it.
referring to you,
I'm
Mike?
guessing so.
Oh, I was like, oh, is someone else in the picture or you?
Herb and Raj, no. She knows her stuff, very talented and great podcast. So no, if that's what she wants to do, hey, balls in her court, guys.
Thank you. Well, we are always looking on for guests or people to
Yep.
collaborate with or come onto our podcast, Player Arts Right podcast. My co-host Sasha, I do it with my friend's husband. We started doing it. I've been newer with the newer show. That's we've had about 6 episodes with this one. He's a Giants fan, so we're gonna have a lot of animosity on our podcast going on
Interesting.
throughout the season. But yeah, we're planning to focus primarily on the NFC East, but we would love to have you guys, any of you guys on, get some insights from other teams. And I definitely want to follow up with you, Mike, on the Broncos and get
Yep.
your, assessment as the season goes. Because I think that's honestly the team everyone's kind of watching to see what happens in
Hmm.
Denver this year. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, we got to keep those memes going one way or another. Hopefully, in a good
Hmm.
way this year. But
Yes.
regardless, hopefully, Let's Ride will actually ride us into actually winning ways. But no, I enjoyed it. I'm definitely gonna have you back on, and hopefully, get your co-host as well, and have some fun talking football. We're approximately 72 days, give or take a day or two,
Hmm.
and we're
Approximately.
getting close. Where can all the listeners find you at and your podcast as we wrap up?
Yeah. So on Twitter, we've had Twitter for a while now. It's the football girl at the football girl. And then our podcast is the Player Yards Right podcast on Apple and Spotify. We actually have a new episode dropping probably within this time I'm recording this. I recorded before
Nice.
that. And we're on Instagram as the Player Yards Right podcast. And yeah, it was a blast being on. Glad to be back. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we'll collaborate again soon.
Sound like a winner, everyone. Sarah.
Have
Sarah,
a good one.
enjoy. Have a good night. You've been listening to the Air Raid Attack podcast. Listen to us on all major podcast platforms. We will see you all guys same time, same place next week. Take care.